Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be breaking down day 2 of the previewed cards for the new Magic the Gathering set, Amonkhet. We've got some really good cards coming out. They're in full swing, so hold on to your hats. We've got quite a few cards to go over, but we've got some good ones. I want to start out with a cycle of cards first. This is the Monument set cycle. This basically, there's one for each god, so there's 5. They're legendary artifacts, which in they're uncommon, which is kind of interesting. A legendary card at uncommon. Usually legendaries are rare or mythic. This is I don't know if this is a first for Wizards, but this is definitely a unique approach for Wizards. So you might, you're likely to see these in your draft pool, as well as your sealed pool as well. Definitely worth taking for a couple different reasons. They all cost 3. Each one is representative of a different god. So there's a green one, which makes all your green creatures cost 1 less, and then likewise for the other 4 colors. Now, the interesting thing is the ability for each of the cards doesn't require a color of creature. So, like the green one, you're for 3 colorless mana, legendary artifact, green creatures cost you 1 less to play, right? But it says whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end turn. This is awesome because it can go in a blue deck. Yeah, you're not going to get the benefit of having, you know, you're not going to get the benefit of having green creatures cost 1 less. But, for like aggro and stuff like that, this is a great top end, for those aggro decks in sealed and even in draft where you can, bump up your one of your creatures you control +2/+2 and give them trample. So there's a kind of a wide range of uses for this. Obviously, it shines in green. But if you're splashing green and you're heavy in another color, your main color is still going to get the benefit. So this is definitely a one to pick up. Even if you're not in green, it's still one of the ones to keep your eye on. If there isn't anything else in the seal or in your draft slot in your pack or anything like that, obviously it's not first pickable. But if you're in these colors, obviously it's a good. A good pickup. The red one obviously is red creature spells, and that's one note to make. It's red creature spells, not spells, not it's all only creature spells. The red one, however, whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So it's kind of like a free cycle, which is outstanding. It triggers. This one would be good in your cycling decks. It's a free trigger for cycling. Also, there's a few abilities that we've seen where when you cycle or discard a card, this will trigger that as well. So, for those decks that don't get a lot of draw card type of dealy thing, like green for instance. Green, the only time they get to draw a card is when it's on a creature or creature based drawing. This is a great way to play a creature. Or when you cast a creature, so it's got to come from your hand, you discard a card and draw a card. Green doesn't get to do that very often, so that's awesome. The black one is basically a drain. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this would be a great commander card. So those 3 are outstanding. The blue one is, let's see here. Whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Key thing to note here, it does not tap the creature down, so you have to target a creature that's already tapped for it to do anything. This is, on turn 4, if you play this and you can, play a 1-drop, you can tap down their biggest thing that they just hit you with, or drop this down on turn 3, and then you can throw down your your 5-drop, which we'll get to here shortly, or 2 or 3 creature for less, which is outstanding. So let's see here. Next, white has whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. Vigilance is always a good ability, especially on tokens. Makes for a real quick attack step, and then if you need someone back on defense, it's a great blocker as well, just to chump block. So get that 1 point of damage in, and then block something big. So just a really good card. There's a legendary creature that would work really well with this warrior token creator. So we'll get to that in just a second. So that's the artifact cycle of the monuments. Now we've got our second god. We had yesterday the red god. This one we've got the blue one. This is obviously foreign language, so this is going to be a rough translation. But it's we definitely know that the name of the god is Kefnet. So the actual ability he has is flying, and of course he's got the indestructible, as all the gods do. He's a 5/5 for 1 blue and 2 generic. So, like we talked about yesterday, these gods I think are an overall improvement as far as verbiage on the actual card to make them quote unquote become a creature, as opposed to the Theros cards where it was very wordy and very difficult to kind of it wasn't technically a creature, but it is a creature. It's got power and toughness. This is just easier to read, easier to understand. This one's a little bit trickier though, to basically lift the attack and block clause off of. Basically, Kefnet cannot attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in your hand. Now, this is only going to fit in a control deck, obviously, because any other deck, if you're not playing cards, you're losing. Aggro, your board state needs to be, fast and furious. Mid-range, you're looking at, big, bulky creatures. You're playing, your mana dorks and stuff like that early, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, to try to get up to something high. So, obviously, playing this on turn 3 isn't going to get you anywhere because you're playing out your hand. But I think this is going to be an all-star in standard, at least, for kind of like a finisher. I mean, it's got flying, so it's got evasion. It doesn't die to a lot of the removal that's out there. It can be exiled, which kind of is a downfall. And there is a white Oblivion Ring or Oblivion Stone type of ability here. Oblivion Ring, I believe. In this preview set that we'll go over here in a minute. But the good news is, just like the red one, and this is kind of what we were alluding to, is its second ability, its activated ability, pays off or helps you pay tribute as described, but pays tribute to get to that actual ability. So its activated ability is 1 blue, 3 generic, draw a card, then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. So, if you're at 6 and you just need to draw that 1 card, that puts you at 7. Great. If you're at 5, you can draw the card and return a land to your hand. That gets you to 7. The other thing you could possibly do is, the best case scenario is you've got one of the cycling lands. You can bounce that back to your hand late game and cycle that away to actually draw additional card. So you're not just getting a land in your hand. So it's definitely going to be a little trickier, but I think with the counter magic that's available and the board control that's available in blue, and probably I want to say black or possibly white, or maybe a combination of them both. This could be a really strong deck and a very, kind of reminiscent of the Return of Ravnica days when we had Jace the Architect of Thought, and we don't really have a Sphinx's Revelation kind of card as far as draw mechanics go, but we could still get one. We could still, not saying that Sphinx's Revelation is going to be in the set, obviously, but that awesome draw mechanic. This is obviously a little pricey. 4 mana, 1 card, possibly 1 card and a land if you want to go that route. Make sure you tap your land for mana before you activate this ability, obviously. If you get this in limited, you're going to play it every time. It's drawing cards, even if it's just an enchantment, to draw you cards. Drawing cards in limited is always a win. Having the 5/5 flyer indestructible, that might be a win too, but if you can't get there, it's not that big of a deal. It comes down on turn 3, which is outstanding. Scribe of the Mindful's next. 1 blue, 2 generic. This is just a generic common. 2/2. You can pay 1 generic mana, tap the cleric, sacrifice it, and return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's kind of an expensive cycler. It's, the only downfall to this card is, it's going to be a chump blocker, and then if in a control deck for limited, which generally they don't do very well because, they don't have a very good board state. But I see this coming down on turn 3, or turn 4. Well, coming down on turn 3 rather, and then turn 4, getting in front of something, tapping, block, tap, pay 1, sack it, and then get your instant sorcery back that you cast on turn 1, 2, 3. It's all right. Definitely don't take it first. Put it in your deck if you don't have anything else to play. It's a very expensive bear. Next up, we have an instant spell, Decision of Paralysis. This is a 1 blue, 3 generic. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures do not untap during their controller's next untap step. So this might work really good with the tapping down creatures and keeping them down. This is just another form of removal. Not as efficient as you would like, but for 4 mana, taking care of 2 creatures for 2 turns is not that shabby. So make sure you do this before attacks are declared, and things like that, and you'll might be able to get a couple swings in with your Kefnet. So what else we got? So this is interesting. This is probably one of my favorite build around me cards. I'm not sure how it'll play in limited, just because some of the cycling we've seen is rather expensive. Discarding in blue is not very prevalent, so you'll have to pair this with black possibly. But Drake's Haven is 1 blue, 2 generic enchantment at the rare level. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1 generic. If you do, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. So I'll say this again. Flying is the most underrated ability in all of the static abilities in Magic, especially in limited, especially in sealed. Sealed, is probably, if you want to go away with, pull away with like 2 or 3 extra wins in your sealed with your sealed deck, flying is definitely a way to go. Playing a bad flyer over a ground wall, non-flying creature is a risk that I usually take in my sealed pool, especially if mana cost is 1 to 2 different. Obviously you don't want a ton of 5-6 mana costing creatures in your deck, but this is this flying generator is outstanding. There's probably going to be some shenanigans in standard. I can see this, kind of like the Sphinx's tutelage decks, where there was like a very fringe deck, but there, it's possible to kind of go off with it. You still need to pay mana for it, so it's not like you can go infinite with it, but it's definitely a fun card, very very flavorful. So next up we have our last blue card, Essence Scatter. It's 1 blue and 1 generic, instant counter target creature spell. This is in limited. Great card for sideboard. Sealed, I would say sealed, I would probably put at least 1 copy if you're a control deck, or if you're running any type of blue in your deck. Just being able to counter their best thing, it just works as a great removal spell, So creatures win games in sealed, so this is definitely something you want to keep in your sideboard. So the next card we have is definitely, this is going to be a commander for sure. And I think this is the Embalm commander that they wanted. I think they knocked it out of the park. Temet, it's 1 blue, 1 white for a legendary creature, human cleric. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, so only on your turn, target creature token you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and cannot be blocked this turn. And then its embalm cost is 1 blue, 1 white, and 3 generic. So a little expensive on the embalm side, but if you can get, if you've got a creature token-based deck, which white and blue are usually the most token-centric colors, this card is going to be fantastic. The trigger goes off every turn before combat, which is nice. The embalm cost is nice because you can after this guy dies in a commander game, he goes to your graveyard first, and before he gets exiled, you can embalm him because he's going to go right back to the commander zone and get his token. I'm not really sure. I wonder what the rules text is for embalm. If you can have uh, Temet, the actual card, out and then his token out. Not sure how that works. That's something we'll have to kind of look up. Maybe it might be on the mothership already, so we'll see. But an all-around win, especially for commander. It's very cheap commander. Gives you a couple access to some really fun cards, especially in the token generating fields. So next up, we have White Cast Out. This is an excellent card. This is probably one of my favorite cards of the set so far, especially at the uncommon level. So 1 white, 3 generic enchantment that has flash. When Cast Out enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield. Now, and then it has cycling. So Oblivion Ring was 2 generic and 1 white, so 1 cheaper. However, this has flash, which is outstanding. And then obviously, if you have multiples in your sealed deck, or if this will definitely be a probably a 1 of or a 2 of in the sideboard. You can cycle it for 1 white. So if you've got like a good board presence and you're kind of at that stalemate and you need to get rid of one of the creatures, great. If you're ahead, this works really well because it cycles away and gives you another different card. So next up we have our Takrop Elite. This is 1 white, 3 generic bird warrior with flying. You may exert him as it attacks, and when you do, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So just it gets the buff as well, which is nice. So 3/3 flyer, and then just kind of anthems everybody up, which is kind of outstanding. If you got a way to untap this guy, that can be a huge benefit to this card. So let's see here. So that's not too shabby. 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer. It's a little on the pricey side, but like I said, in sealed, this is a good card because of the flying. Not to mention the anthem effect on top of that. It's no Windrake, but it's definitely pretty close. All right, green. Green got some really good cards today. I'm really excited for both of these cards. The rare more so than the uncommon, but they represent a new kind of branch of design for Wizards. So Chandler, the Chandler on the left here is going to be probably a standard staple, just for the mere fact that it's great good early game and it's great late game. So it's 1 green, 1 generic, human druid, 3/4. When the Chandler enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. Okay, so turn 2, you can if you didn't do anything turn 1, but play a land. Turn 2, you play this. It's a 0/1. And then it has an activated ability where you tap it and remove a -1/-1 counter from the Chandler and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it's a great mana sink where you can, or a mana dork where it gets bigger as the game goes on, which is fantastic. It gives you a couple extra mana bumps, along the way. Not only does it get bigger, but it also gives you mana, which is outstanding. The other thing that is outstanding about this card, and this is where I really I want to see it shine, is as far as green aggro goes. Being able to on turn 1 play a 1-drop, just something that when it enters the battlefield, you get some type of benefit. Is it Thraven Inspector? I think. Was the 2/1 or the 1/2 in white from what was it, from Innistrad, Shadows over Innistrad, that gives you the clue token. That card on turn 1, get your clue token. Turn 2, attack with it, as long as the board's clear, obviously, and then play this post combat. put all 3 counters on the inspector, get rid of the inspector. You still have your clue token, and now you have on turn 2 a 3/4. So now you're attacking for 3 on turn 4. Obviously, you didn't get any of the mana ramp out of that in that scenario, but you've got the information of how many lands you drew for the game your opening 7. So it's very, very flexible. Then the other thing that's really nice is in the late game, you've got a couple ground creatures, or maybe a token or something, or maybe you've got something that's tapped down, is not untap, not untapping for some enchantment, or something's holding it back. Normally this card, 3/4 isn't that exciting, but late game, turn 4, turn 5, being able to upgrade one of your tokens to a 3/4 might be fantastic. So all around really solid card. Looking, it's going to look beautiful in foil. The blue magic that's going on above her head, it'll look really good in foil. Exemplar of Strength. This is the same vein, in which is outstanding. And they actually, let's see here. So it's one green, 1 generic for a 4/4. So a two drop for 4/4. So even better numbers than the Chandler. But Exemplar, when it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. And then whenever the Exemplar attacks, remove a -1/-1 counter from it. If you do, gain 1 life. So there's a little bit of rules here to make sure everyone's clear. If you do not put the -1/-1 counters on the Exemplar, you don't gain the life, right? So let's say you have both these cards in play, right? The Chandler comes into play. You put the 3 -1/-1 counters on it. You can put your bump your life up. Or not bump your life up, bump your mana pool up for a couple turns, and then you play the Exemplar of Strength, and then you can refill those counters on the Chandler, effectively giving you more mana for the fourth, fifth, and sixth turn. Obviously, if you put the 3 -1/-1 counters on the Exemplar, it'll be a 1/1, and then when you attack with it on turn 3, which might not work, you can remove it. It'll become a 2/2 before damage is dealt, and you'll gain a life. So it works really good early game. Not as good as the Chandler because it's not giving you any extra mana, but it's providing you with life, which in some cases, a body and life in the same card for cheap is really good and limited. So this is definitely going to be one of those cards you want to play. It's at uncommon, so that you'll see a few of them come out of the packs you open. All right, so next up in black, we've got Splendid Agony. This is 1 black, 2 generic instant. Distribute 2 -1/-1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. Black removal. It's not too shabby. -2/-2 to a creature for 3. It could be better, but in limited and sealed, this is going to be a good removal card for your early 1 and 2 drops, sometimes even your 3 drops. Not to mention it puts a damper on some of those creatures that come into play with -1/-1 counters. There's a lot of adding -1/-1 counters to creatures you control. So if you run into those types of decks, this might be able to side in a couple extra. But yeah, so the next card is a rough translation. It's Lay Bare the Heart. I've also seen Pull the Heart or Free the Heart. Something of the heart. You're removing the heart. Remove the heart. It's a sorcery for 1 black, 1 generic. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-legendary, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. The thing that these always get compared to, these discard spells, is Thoughtseize, and unfortunately that's kind of where we're at. Duress probably, Duress is Distress is probably the better version of this card. You've also got just a couple other 2 mana remove card from hand type of things. we're never going to get Thoughtseize back. I mean, they had it in Theros, and it kind of broke. That's one of the things that made Black such a bear to play against, just for how powerful it was and how early it can affect the game. But this is an okay card. Great in limited because you're non-legendary. It's not going to hit the gods, unfortunately, but it will hit just about anything else in the set so far that's been spoiled. We haven't got any planeswalkers spoiled yet, but we know they're coming. It will hit planeswalkers, which is fantastic. But you'll get it early information. You'll get hit most of the time in sealed. Most people won't keep a hand that doesn't have any creatures in it just because of the nature of the game. So this is definitely an auto include early on. So. All right, so let's see here. Let's move over. We've got one red card. This is a fun card. This is, I think, one of the. I'm trying to think of what there was a blue card back in the day that did something very, very similar to this. Cost the exact same, one blue. This is one red for Consuming Fever. It's an aura enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +3/+3 and has, quote, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on this creature. Now, the cool thing about this card is, imagine this with the either the Exemplar or the Channeler, right? You're giving it +3/+3, so you're making it a bigger creature. The 4/4 will now become a 7/7. The 3/4 will become a 6/7, obviously. But this is like unlimited mana for your mana dork. Obviously, you can't attack with it, but it's still, if you take a turn off, it gets a +1/+1 counter. You can attack with it. Those kind of interactions are really fun and unique. The red is very much like, hey, let's go ahead and just dump, as much as we can out of our hand, and just screw the consequences. Let's just kind of balls to the wall type of thing. And this just definitely feels just like that. So it's going to be a great limited card, great sealed card. If you've got them, play them. They're cheap, cheap buffs. And even if you get one attack out of it, plus on your 1/1, so you turn 2, you're dealing 4 damage. And the nice thing is you get the buff before the -1/-1 counter, so you don't have to worry about that. So fantastic card. Last but not least, we've got 2 split cards. The one on the left is Onward Victory. It's a red-white card, so the Onward is 1 red, 2 generic, and instant. Target creature gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is its power. So it's a great way to kind of buff up the creature that you've got lying around to kind of give it a little bit extra kick. And then Victory is 1 white and 2 generic. It's a sorcery with Aftermath, obviously, so you have to play it from your graveyard. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So not only are you doubling its power from Onward, Victory is quadrupling its power. So if you've got 6 mana lying around, this is a great way to kind of get a couple extra damage in. Obviously, if you just have the 3 mana, you can still turn 3, put this on your 2-drop, attack, and then turn 4, cast Victory from your graveyard and attack, and it effectively does the same amount of damage just over the course of 2 turns. So that those cards are, in my opinion, so far the split cards are very lackluster. The next one, Prepared and Fight, is very blah. Like, I am not excited for this card at all. But the prepared portion of it is 1 white, 1 generic. Untapped target creature gets +2/+2. It has lifelink. That's a fantastic card on its own. That sounds like a rare, right? That sounds really good, especially if you've got if someone's tapped down your creature for some reason, doesn't untap during your next untap step, things like that. This lets you, add instant speed, untap, block, get the +2/+2 buff and lifelink, or surprise attack. With obviously you're not going to use it as a combat trick for attacks, as often and get all the value, but you'll get the +2/+2 and lifelink. So the second portion of it, fight. This is where it kind of drains the card a little bit. So 1 green, 3 generic. Target creature you control fights target creature an opponent controls. Very simple. Unfortunately, this is way overpriced for 4 mana. And the thing is, like, these cards don't work together, which is really, I mean, well, I guess they kind of do in the fact that you can untap a creature. I mean, you can still 2 creatures, whether it's tapped or not, you can fight them no matter what. But paying 6 mana to give +2/+2 lifelink and destroy a creature, like, I don't know. Getting 2 triggers of lifelink, however, might be worth it. But, again, rare card, you're not going to see many of them in sealed or in limited, so we'll see. So, all right, guys. Well, that was all the cards for day 2. I really appreciate you watching the video. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section about what cards you're most excited about. Let's talk about the blue god for a little bit. This definitely a little bit harder to manage as far as keeping 7 cards in your hands. You be able to attack and block. If you've got instant speed draw cards, that poses a really big threat, especially on blocks. So that might definitely deter someone from attacking blindly into your sleeping, quote unquote, sleeping god. But let me know what you guys think. The red one was a little lackluster. This one's a little bit better, I think, with the evasion. So let's hear what you guys have to think. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, and then make sure you hit the subscribe button on your way out. Really appreciate that. And we'll be back tomorrow with more videos on the upcoming cards for Amonkhet. We'll see you guys tomorrow.